Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's Just Know HOA story, an entitled Karen demands I give my service dog to her kid and then tries to run him over when I refuse. Here is what happened. The title story goes like this. Being disabled is hard enough without Karens making it 100 times harder, and yet I come across them all the time. Usually ones that want to ignore the vests on my service dog saying do not touch and distract him. In the second place are Karens that want me kicked out of stores because they don't like a dog being in there with them. The worst thing ever happened though when I moved into a new neighborhood that had a mandatory HOA. In this HOA there is a pet policy that is pretty strict and states no dogs, cats, lizards or birds allowed. Basically, you can have a goldfish and nothing else for reasons that I don't know or care about. My dog is not a pet, he is a medical device that I have a legal right to keep with me at all times. It overrides any and all animal restrictions. It turns out Karen lives next door to me and is a big stickler for the rules. When she sees me moving in and that I have a dog, she is quick to run outside and confront me about it. Starting out nicely reminding me that I signed a contract and it states that I'm not allowed to have a dog. That she knows many wonderful shelters that can take him in and she would be even willing to take him there for me. Jeez, imagine this is how you think to nicely introduce herself to the neighbors. I explain that he is a service dog and point out his vest. This also gets reinforced when the kid comes running outside screaming doggy 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 and making a beeline for him. He seems like maybe 5, so I calmly put a hand out and explain that he cannot pet the dog because he is working and I need him. Karen does not believe a word I am saying and starts making a fuss that I'm not blind and clearly don't have a disability. That I am carrying boxes inside and to her I look perfectly fine. If it's not clear yet, I have an invisible disability which makes me even more angry when I see people telling me I don't need a service dog. He is a seizure alert dog and can warn me when one is coming so I can prevent myself from getting hurt. Then staying with me until I recover or if people are nearby, even getting help for me. I don't want to go into details, but this dog has saved my life before and nobody's gonna threaten to take him away from me. Karen does not want to hear a word of the fact that he is a medical dog and again that I look fine. She says that she doesn't know how I wormed my way into getting a dog into the neighborhood, but that I should give it to her son. Now that he has seen the dog for 5 seconds, he is apparently emotionally attached to it and needs it more than me, directly going against her previous statements being adamant that no dogs can be in the neighborhood. She then even turns to her son and asks if he wants the dog and what name he wants to give it. This lady was totally delusional and I didn't need the stress from her already on top of the stress from moving. I once again refuse and say that my dog is staying with me before telling her to get off my lawn and try to walk away. I want to get into the house and calm down before I work myself up to the point of having a medical problem. He can also signal me for panic attacks and he was subtly doing so, which meant I really had to get away from Karen. Then she made the mistake of grabbing my shoulder, turning me around and shoving a knife in my face. She said for me to hand over my dog now or I was gonna end up bloody on the lawn. And that since she was here longer, nobody would believe me. I got 0 fighting experience, but high anxiety mixed with a knife in my face just kind of did something to me. I don't want to really remember what I did, but my knuckles were bloody and she was on the ground clutching her nose. Maybe somebody in the comments with more knowledge can explain to me what happened, because I'm usually flight, not fight. At that point, my dog is frantically trying to get me to sit down as I am fully in a panic attack at that moment. The police gets called by somebody and they come over to take everyone's statements. I'm trying to calm down and stop crying to tell them that she tried to take my dog and threatened to stab me because of it. I wanted to press charges and get a restraining order, but the officers on the scene told me that pressing charges were never gonna hold. It would only cause her injury to get more looked into and I could end up getting in trouble. They wanted to chalk it up to a neighborhood dispute and for both of us to go home and cool off. A few days later, Karen decided that if she could not have my dog, then nobody could and actually tried to run him over. I let him outside in the yard for him to do his business and then just come back. Sometimes I walk him, but I'm not always physically up to it. I hear a weird noise and then my dog cries out, so I run outside. The noise was Karen jumping the curb with her car and my dog cries was, well, my dog crying. She had tried to run him over with her car and she seemed angry for the simple fact that she didn't succeed. I was crying for the second time that week and on the phone with police telling them to send help. It did not look too bad, but his tail looked broken or something, and there was blood. I held him and cursed out Karen until the police arrived and saw that it was the two of us again. This time, Karen was too angry to think of anything else and claimed that I should be the one in trouble because the HOA does not allow dogs, so the entire thing was my fault. Attacking a service animal is a bigger deal than attacking a normal pet. Hurting any animals I find to be the scummiest thing in the world, by the way, but I'm just talking legally. So Karen got arrested and I went with my dog to see the emergency veterinarian and get his tail checked out. The accident caused a partial sever and they had to cut more to preserve what they could in the long run. He had to heal for a while, but he didn't have any damage to his spine and after a few days seemed to be back to his old self. Karen got arrested for the animal abuse, but it wasn't what ultimately caused her to end up in jail. It turns out that she had a suspended license due to being drunk behind the wheel multiple times, and plus the home was full of booze and they even found some drugs. No judge was gonna go light on her, especially with a little kid at home she was putting at risk at the same time. I have no idea if this kid had a father in the picture, but I did hear that he was taken to live with other relatives once Karen was taken away. And yeah, ripe stars, in my opinion, people that hurt animals deserve the absolute worst. That is just pure evil if you ask me. But anyway, if you liked the story, please don't forget to like the video, post a comment and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for your continued support. The next one is titled Karma Revenge on City. This is my revenge or maybe a karma story. It goes back to the 1970s but ended just a few years ago. It makes me smile every time I drive past a particular piece of property knowing the city screwed themselves. My wife and I purchased a 1.5-acre bare corner lot for $7,500 in a second-tier suburb. Gravel road on one side, asphalt county road on the other. The intentions were to build our first house in 4 or 5 years after saving up enough money to afford it. The planning and zoning people we talked to before purchasing the lot assured us the roads would not be improved, to use their exact words, in our lifetime. Lo and behold, 4 years later, we are assessed $45,000 because a housing developer purchased all the land around us to build a huge housing subdivision. I am unsure how many lots, but well over 100. With that kind of density, curb, gutter, sewer, water and paving were required, so the developer pushed through the planning commission and city council a project to get this done, with each property owner asserted their portion based on frontage. Since ours was a corner lot, we got hit twice, assessed per lineal frontage foot for each of the 2 sides of the lot. To make matters worse, after the city took land easements from us required to widen the road and install the improvements, our lot size was reduced by almost half an acre to 0.98 acres. When they presented the easement paperwork for signature, I took it to an attorney to review and his first question was how much they were offering in compensation. They offered nothing. They were hoping the whole process would just proceed without the issue of payment coming up. When confronted with this omission, the city's reply was, "We don't usually pay for these easements. Your neighbors didn't ask for payment." My neighbors were also not assessed nearly as much as me, and to the best of my knowledge did not hire a lawyer to review the paperwork. To make a long story short, I ended up negotiating a $4,500 payment. But there is more. So my lawyer also said real estate cannot be assessed, no matter how much it cost the city, for more than the increased market value of the lot after the assessment. So then we sued. After several attempts to sell the lot for $45,000 with no takers, it was appraised at a substantially lower value and we won a settlement from the city, reducing the assessment to only $13,500, but still, there is more. Remember, this all happened in the 70s. The amounts would be more than triple in today's dollars. So to recoup some of the costs, I presented a development plan to the city council to put 6 small rental units, attached row houses, on the property because the existing R1 single-family zoning was not feasible anymore and it was now on a corner lot with higher traffic. My proposal was shut down on multiple occasions, even after revisions were made at the request of the city planner to bring everything within zoning ordinances. It turns out the Planning Commission and City Council resented having to pay for the easement several years back and that there was a domino effect. When the neighbors heard the city paid me, they also wanted to be paid. Several attempts were also made to get the lot rezoned commercial to build a gas station, fast food restaurant or similar business, but they were all shut down. I ended up donating the lot to a non-profit that builds houses for the homeless similar to Habitat for Humanity. A very generous market value appraisal gave me a huge income tax deduction, allowing me to almost break even. And now the rest of the story: the organization the lot was donated to went bankrupt. I know this because the city started to come after me for unpaid property taxes on the land in the early 1980s until it was proven to them title to the lot was transferred to the non-profit several years previously. The lot stood vacant for 40 years being maintained by the city. We still live in the neighborhood and I chuckled over the years every time I drove by it with the family. 2 years ago I noticed the city finally sold it and what appears to be a 4-unit residential building was constructed. The revenge and karma? The 6 small rental units I wanted to build 40 years ago would have been valued at the time at $500,000, which back then was an insane amount of money. I mean, it still is, but back then that was so much more. Anyway, had the city allowed construction when first requested in the late 70s, the 6 units would have an assessed market value today of $1.5 million based on the market value of similar units in the area. 6 units at $250K each, actually on the low side. With an average assessed value over 40 years of $1 million and a 1.32% average property tax rate, the city lost $528,000 in tax revenue because the city council did not want to pay me $4,500. And the next one is titled Glorious Revenge. Let me introduce you to my friends. So, my family owns a small water store in the middle of a tiny strip mall in our town. Back in the beginning of the water store's life, 5 years into owning, we had an interesting visitor. In 2009, a man claiming that he was the first marshal, and he was doing inspections for the area. He forcefully walked through our building without authority, paperwork or such, claiming a half-dozen infractions. Keep in mind, he had a badge, he had business cards, he had quite the gruff exterior. He was a bit muscular and had this in-control attitude. He then wrote a bill-ups of what needed to be done, and the man moved on and we reacted with a bad scare as we thought how to fix all of this. We of course checked with our insurance, but conveniently, a fire safety company whom provides fire extinguisher services, fire alarms, etc. on the same day walked in and asked if their services were needed. He said he saw the fire marshal and thought that we odds are had a list of infractions on us. Should have seen this one coming. So the fire company reprehensively starts writing an estimate while looking over the list the fire marshal gave us. We got suspicious. Keep in mind, we are a young business, slow on the uptake. We had a hunch. Why? Well, every business was inspected in our little strip mall and the timing between the two events. How often do you get an inspection and then someone with an answer? So my dad and I are beginning to feel it's a scam. We decide to investigate. It turns out, after calling the local fire authority and fire department, they confirmed that both these guys were fakes. A fake fire marshal and a fake company were scamming people in the area. So over a weekend we contacted the appropriate companies and repaired what was needed and recharged our fire extinguisher with no issues. Our landlord was happy to help and we then waited for the guy to try to pressure us again. When he showed up again, we showed him how we had fixed it all and he walked out in pain. But let's jump ahead 2 years. Now, my dad is a friendly sort. He loves shaking hands and meeting people. He made friends with the local fire marshal and the fire chief. They are both regulars at our water store, so the fake fire marshal came back. He said he was doing a surprise inspection again and was gonna walk around. He then enters into our shop and he makes some notes. He then walks to the cross-section, and this is a key element. So one door leads to a bathroom and one door goes to our storage, one door goes to our neighbor's place. There are several fire escape plans posted including on that door and around the facility. He goes into the storage room to count violations. What he didn't count on was, as he was doing this inspection, the real fire marshal and chief of the local fire department walked in, both in civil, out of uniform. Both are now retired but still get water from us, and we got to know the new ones too. They were getting water from our store. They were filling and talking, and I told them both to keep quiet for a moment. I told them what was going on. One of them steps out and calls the police. He then returns and we wait. As the fake fire marshal walks in with his list of infractions, I prepare something for him. I close our front door and show him a pair of fire extinguishers he forgot to inspect. He then checks them. I pretend to resume the conversation and end with a joke and start lightly chatting it up with my 2 friends/customers, and I ask the fake fire marshal, "Hey, faker, have you met gentlemen 1 and 2? Keep in mind I introduced them as normal people. Faker, "No, I haven't." He shakes their hands. Me, "Well, funny story. See, the reason is, I'm laughing, they work in the same line as you." Faker, "Oh yeah." Me, "Yeah, they introduce themselves and shake hands saying it's an honor to meet another local hero." Me, "Funny thing is, I would think you would know them. This time I introduced them for real. They show their badges and real cards and I stand with a smug grin. The fake fire marshal steps back into our counter, he is chuckling on and realizes the jig is up. He's trying to explain things and making excuses. Suffice to say, he ran for the cross-section but I guess missed a turn because he ran into a dead-end storage room. So we wait for the police and he is arrested. As he's being taken away, he is screaming that these guys are the fakers, that he is in the right. Some days later, the fire safety company guy is arrested too. It turns out the guy was related to him and the two had been running this scam up and down the entire coast. I hope this one made you smile. And yeah, Ripe stars, keep that in mind. If you're running such a dumb scam, always double down and pretend that the real fire marshals are actually the fake ones. I gotta say, that was my favorite part of the story. The puppy got it bad. My son wanted to make a volcano, so we did. He wanted blue lava, so I added blue food coloring. The neighbors have this adorable puppy, he looks like a hound. He was running around and I kept picking him up to steer him away from our volcano. We got everything set up and I got out my phone to make a video of my son's science experiment. He is 4, experiment is a tough word. So he went up and poured in the baking soda mixture and empty Vesuvius was born in blue. The puppy ran up again and stepped in the blue lava. His little white socks are now blue. I went over and told the neighbors that it was just food coloring so they would not worry. They were mad, said I should have moved the volcano to the backyard or waited until the puppy was not running around. I don't think it is my responsibility to make sure their puppy does not end up with blue paws. I mean, he is cute as hell and not a dangerous dog, but they should still probably keep him on a leash or something. I have not seen him run around in the road, but he could, and that would probably be much worse than blue paws that won't stay blue permanently. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for not taking more care to keep the puppy out of our lava? And a user in the comments said, NTA, let me get this straight, they let their puppy run wild, it gets into something, and then they blame anyone but themselves? Tell those idiots that there is a lot worse things out there for a puppy to get into than blue food coloring. Some people leave rat poison out. PSA, as a vet tech who used to work ER, for God's sake people, please keep your dogs controlled. We see them come in hit by cars, attacked by dogs or wildlife, poisoned, shot by ranchers who thought they were coyotes, etc. Leash laws exist for a reason. And another user said, not the a-hole, if the puppy is running onto your property, then it is not your responsibility to make sure that it stays away from your volcano. You have as much of a right to use your front yard as they do, and most places in the US at least have leash laws. They should have kept a better watch on their puppy. At least for the most part, food coloring is harmless to dogs and it will wash out in time. No harm, no foul this time, but if the puppy runs out into the road or in a driveway of someone backing their car out, it would be a totally different story. Hopefully they take better care of their little one before he gets hurt. And yeah, Ripe stars, I would say OP is definitely not the a-hole here. However, as the other user said, I am very concerned for the puppy. Especially if a dog is so young, you definitely have to keep an eye on him much better than these neighbors. Let me know what you think about this story in the comments. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.